All righty, here we go. Ball up top, episode number 7. Nice little episode. We'll dive into some Auburn IU and then hit on conferences right before conference play as we come up on the holiday. Give you guys something to listen to over the break. I guess starting out, we'll kick it off with Auburn's recap this past 2 weeks. First off, we played Chattanooga, 5-6 Chattanooga in Hoopsgiving in State Farm Arena here in Atlanta. Auburn won 92-78. I call outside Keyshawn Hall again, 22, 11, and 6. Hod had 20 points. And I mean, it was a mismatch. I honestly thought we didn't play that well. Their tallest guy was 6'9". They were a small white team, and I mean, they did was try and shoot threes. Again, they're 5-6, and they're a small school like Chattanooga. That's a game that Auburn expected to win, and again looked a little lethargic, but they got the job done. I really liked. It looked like Steven made it a point to kind of run some more sets. We had 17 assists, which was a season high, which was very good to see, especially considering how those numbers have looked in some of our previous games. Hunter, do you have anything else to call out in that game?
Not a ton. I think to your point, didn't play real well. It was a 5-point game at half. And I think just throughout the course of the game, the disparity in talent just kind of took over.
Yeah,
Tahad and Magwood had nice games, 5 threes from Tahad in that one. Shot the three fairly well as a team. We were 11 for 30 for just under 40%. Um, but it really just came down to, we didn't come out. That was our first game since the previous Saturday where we got run out of the gym by Arizona. So I would have liked to have seen us kind of come out, a little bit faster and hotter and kind of shake that loss. Um, but again, you took care of business against a lesser opponent, and we'll get to this a little bit more as we start talking about the Purdue game. But it's becoming more evident to me that at least at this point, like this team has not been able to hang with some of the better teams in the country that they've had on their schedule. But there's something to be said for the fact that they've pretty much taken care of business against the teams that they should beat. I don't know what their record would be in total. Like I'm sure I think St. John's we were an underdog. That's probably the only game we won that we were an underdog in. Um, Otherwise, I think we were favored against Oregon. We were favored against NC State. Some of those, better wins that we have to this point. So that's starting to look like a little bit of a theme with this team is that at least they're taking care of business, beating who they should beat, but maybe just the roster is not quite at a point to be able to consistently contend in games against the Arizonas, Michigans, Purdue's, teams like that. Um, and I guess that was evident last night against Purdue. Um, just another thrashing, and it's frustrating because I think we're a talented team, and I think we've got enough to at least be competitive in some of these games. We were competitive against Houston, and maybe Houston doesn't quite have the size that Michigan, Arizona, and Purdue have. Because that really has been the Achilles heel for this team. We've said it ad nauseum that just overall depth in the front court is not very good. And that seems to be the thing that kills us time and time again in these games. But I guess, P, what were some of your thoughts or takeaways from last night's game?
yeah. Again, and for Auburn fans out there, I know there's a lot of frustration. It is tough to watch. Last couple of years playing in these big games, you put up a little more of a formidable fight, but we haven't done that in the slightest against these teams this year. Granted, you got to cut Steven and the team a little bit of slack. Like the turnover and roster from last year to this
Oh
year
yeah.
it's night and day. And I mean, love BP, but he threw his son to the wolves with the schedule. I mean, your losses. Granted, you got killed in a lot of the games, but you can't be too disappointed if I mean you lost to Arizona, Michigan, Purdue, and Houston. Are those might be all top 6 teams in the country right now?
Yeah, I mean it's the preseason number one and two with Purdue and Houston, and then the two that have clearly separated themselves with Michigan and Arizona. So I think, yeah, to your point, four of the best, six or seven teams in the entire country. But yeah, it's pretty evident that we're just not at a point with where our roster is, and like I think Stephen Pearl's actually done a pretty good job with what he's working with. It was an impossible task for BP and Stephen to replace you know, 9 or 10 scholarship guys from a team that went to the Final Four and was like analytically one of the better teams ever, at least offensively. Um, but there are just I think, some obvious holes in the roster that are ultimately going to prohibit this team from competing down the stretch and beating, some of the top dogs in the country.
Yeah, you kind of need Hod to carry the offense in those games. And granted, up until this point, he has, and it hasn't really changed that much. He got a little banged up and only had 5 points. Again, it's concerning when, and I've Overton's growing on me, but it is concerning when you're relying on him to shoot 12 threes a
Yeah.
game. That being said, Overton had a good quote at the end of after the Purdue game that I think is a good outlook for Auburn fans. He said, "We're just young. We're learning how to be in these games and how to compete at a consistent level. Just learning what it takes. I think we've taken a lot of strides. We've just got to stay with it come conference play." And I couldn't agree more with that. Um, I think to your point, Hunter, it's just keep beating the teams that you're supposed to beat, and like Overton said, try and gel and get better and make those bigger games a little more competitive. None of those games were at home either. I think the Jungle is proven to be a top 10 atmosphere in college basketball the last couple of years. So getting some of those big SEC games at home can also help move that needle a little bit. Um, so overall, we talk a lot about ceilings and floors. I mean, you lost to four Final Four teams, arguably. Um, so like again, I'm sticking with the Sweet 16. Like my opinion of this team hasn't really changed, other than my fear has been of our lack of interior defense and rebounding has been validated by the way we've played in the big ones. Now, as we look ahead, our next two games, we've got Queens. I hope we beat the hell out of them, and that's all I'm going to say about that game. I don't think there needs to be any
Yeah.
in depth.
Get right. Get right
Yeah,
game.
yeah, bounce back, and then we go to Athens, and Georgia's done this the last 2 years where they start like 13-0, 12-1 because they play absolute nobody in their preseason. And they come in ranked at 25. I think this is a good pulse check. It's kind of like your St. John's. It's kind of like your NC State, to your point. Like if this team is going to, make any sort of fight towards the end of the season, these are the games that you have to win. Um, and as far as Georgia goes, I know we've got a couple listeners who've been dying to hear a little bit of Georgia basketball talk. Georgia likes to run and score. They're a very good offensive team. That being said, teams that like to run, Auburn has bode well against them, except for Michigan. Georgia's led by the likes of Blue Kane. This is crazy stat, and this is again why I think we match up well against them. So we struggle interior with rebounding. Their leading rebounder is 6'3" guard Blue Kane. He averages 5.7 rebounds a game and 16 points. And then of course Jeremiah Wilkinson coming in at roughly around 18 points.
That high?
Overall,
Wow.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
realize it was that good of a year.
Yeah, 17.9. He's had a very good start to the season. Again, Georgia hasn't beaten anyone. They've
Hmm.
won the games that they're supposed to win up until this point. They've definitely looked better than I thought they would be. But again, I think this is a game that Auburn, I mean, I'm not saying must win, but you really want to win this one. We match up well.
Yeah, I think I love this being the first game of conference play. I think it's a really good litmus test for both teams. Again, talking about Auburn kind of to this point being able to take care of business and win the games they're supposed to. I would think they would maybe be a small favorite in this game in Athens. But again, Georgia maybe looking for some additional validation. They've taken care of business as well against they've played some high major teams and looked impressive, but I'm sure they're licking their chops to to get into SEC play and prove that they're legit. So this will be a fun opener, and then A&M is after that. They haven't looked great to this point. Um, and you get Arkansas at home in mid January, and they had a rough one last night against Houston, but they've been pretty impressive after a little bit of a shaky start with some big time wins. So the jungle will be rocking for that one. But it's you get right into conference play, and it doesn't get any easier. Even though you're talking about all the top teams you played to this point, it's not going to get any easier jumping into SEC play, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see how they're going to handle it. I'm glad Kevin Overton said what he did about the team being young and having to gel, because we've said that, and I know it's frustrating to lose some of those games the way we have, but a little bit of patience is needed with a brand new roster, a young, inexperienced roster, first year head coach. I think they're going to continue to gel and learn how to play together, play off each other. But again, you gotta keep your foot on the gas, and the SEC is, in my opinion, pretty open for the taking. I think Arkansas has looked better. Tennessee's had a nice win against Louisville earlier this week. Um, I think Alabama's still really talented. I think Florida's still really talented, but I think it's there for the taking. So be interesting to see as things get going into conference play. But that's really all I got on Auburn.
Sure, Josh. Any takes from the outside perspective on Auburn? These last couple of weeks.
Not too much else. I think y'all obviously covered it really well. I I do think that the Georgia game is a fun one to start conference play, and they're, as you said, paying their team that's been I think they're scoring the most points per game in the country. But like you said, it's not against that great a competition, so we'll see how they do when they play their first SEC matchup. I'm sure they'll have a pretty decent environment there in Athens for that game. As far as Auburn goes for the rest of the season outlook, I don't think I really see y'all competing for the winning the conference, but I definitely think that top four is in the SEC is still very much in play, which as an outsider looking in with the new coach, all the new players, I probably would consider that a successful regular season if you can get top four in what's a pretty deep SEC this year.
For sure. For sure. You want to dive into some Indiana basketball?
Yeah, let's do it. We had three games since we last recorded. First against Penn State, which was probably the Hoosiers' best performance of the year so far. And Penn State's not a good team at all or anything, but I mean, we scored 113 points, and this was the Lamar Wilkerson show. He had maybe probably one of the best performances ever in a Hoosier uniform. Granted, it didn't have that big of stakes. It wasn't in the tournament or it wasn't against Purdue or anything. But just based off numbers, he set the Assembly Hall scoring record with 44 points, and he did that in I think in 23 or 24 minutes, and only on two free throws. It was a crazy shooting
Insane.
performance. Yeah, I mean he was red hot. He also had
What
the
was
program. Yeah, go ahead.
what was he percentage wise from three in that game?
He was 10 for 15.
Jeez.
Insane. Yeah. And 10 threes in a game is the most in program history for a single game by a single player. So he set two records. But yeah, it was a pretty crazy performance. It's exactly what we got him for. You kind of got it with him. There's going to be some nights where he's off shooting, and you just got to let him kind of work through that, take his shots. And when you get nights like that, it's pretty easy to forget about the nights that he goes 2 for 8. So that was great to see. Other notes besides Lamar, which obviously was the headline from that game, we had talked about in the last pod about Reed Bailey's struggles so far. He actually, and that's something we talked about was maybe putting him on the bench, and DeVries did bench him for this game, and the next he hasn't returned to the starting lineup yet since the benching, and he responded well. He scored 16 points or 18 points actually. Didn't miss a shot in 21 minutes, so still getting solid minutes from the bench, and maybe matching up a little bit better against the second stringers on the other team. He still trying to adjust to the physicality. He's still kind of weak with the ball and can be kind of careless sometimes, but it was good to see him respond well to the benching. He didn't sulk. He was hoping to obviously be a starter for the year, but it as the team dictates, you kind of have to adjust on the fly. So that's really all I got on the Penn State game. They shot the ball incredibly well. Besides that, I mean, Tucker DeVries had 12 points. Tin Conway had a solid game, 17 points and 7 assists. So pretty, really solid offensive game. Defense was okay. We let up 72 points against a bad Penn State team, but doesn't really matter when you score 113. So then moving on to Kentucky, big time return to rivalry against Kentucky. And the first half looked great. I think it was 39-32 at halftime. Lamar stayed hot in the first half coming out of the Penn State game. He did get into foul trouble. I think he had three in the first half, and then he picked up his fourth like 2 minutes in the second half, which ultimately was one of the things that killed us. We played at our pace in the first half, not Kentucky's, which was a little bit slower. But like I said, the fouls kind of caught up to us. Tucker got into foul trouble. He ended up fouling out with like 2 minutes left in the game. The game was already over when he fouled out, but he was having to sit for a bit in the second half too. And I mentioned that Lamar fouled out or got his fourth foul 2 minutes into the second half. So that came back to hurt us. But I think to me in this game, the biggest story was the turnovers. We had 18 turnovers, they had four. And we actually out rebounded them, but when you're turning the ball over 18 times, it doesn't really matter what you do on the glass. And we only had 8 assists, which was, I think it has to be a season low because we're still like top 10, I believe, in the country in assist rate. So that 8 assists was really uncharacteristic. In the second half, the ball just stopped moving. We shot 17% from three. The ball wasn't moving. The guys weren't moving. They were standing around. Kentucky did a great job of pressuring the ball, and Conway and Wright are two main ball handlers. When they got pressure in their face, they couldn't really respond well. It was also in Rupp, very hostile environment. U has historically struggled there. And one thing that I've noticed on this team is they do struggle on the road and in neutral site games. The only road or neutral site game we won was against Marquette, who is terrible, and that was in Chicago, which was a mainly pro Indiana crowd there. And I think we have a lot of guys coming in from mid majors besides Tucker and Connor Enright and Sam Alexis from Florida. Everyone else is from a mid major, so there's probably still getting used to a hostile environment like playing at Rupp, where you miss a shot, it's the crowd's gonna let you hear it, and you can kind of see it. Even Lamar Wilkerson kind of struggled with that a bit. You see how much better he shoots when he's playing in Assembly Hall compared to on the road so far. So that's something to watch going forward is how can this team respond on the road when they maybe Kentucky or whoever you're playing goes on a bit of a run and the crowd gets into it. Are you able to come up with a response to end that run? But yeah, the main story from that game is foul trouble, turnovers, and just not being able to handle the ball pressure that Kentucky put on us. But credit to Kentucky, they played awesome in the second half, and we kind of pissed down our leg and didn't have a response. And then finally, Chicago State. Don't have to talk about this too much, but this was also a tale of two halves, honestly. Kind of a kind of a good representation of what our season's been like so far. The first half, we made 14 threes, which was crazy, 14 out of 26. In the second half, we were 1 out of 20. So, um, yeah, it was quite an interesting game. We had a 23-point lead at half, and I think we ended up winning by like 22 or something. So it was an even second half, and that's just solely based off of the amount of threes that we were shooting, the amount of threes that we were missing. But against Chicago State, right after exams before Christmas, I wasn't really expecting like a knockout performance. Granted, Chicago State is like bottom 20, bottom 30 team out of like 350 on Torvik, so you would like to see them continue and have a good second half, but going one from 20 from three, I don't think that's something that's going to happen very often. It's just kind of a circumstances. So I'd say overall, the past 2 weeks, Indiana has had some good signs. Obviously, the Penn State game was great. The first half of Kentucky was awesome. But the struggles that have been present throughout the entire season are still there. The turnovers from the ball pressure, not being able to rebound consistently, and I we do have a lot of guys who can hit shots, but Lamar can create his own shot, Tucker can create his own shot a little bit, but he's not Tucker's better off coming off the ball screen. He's not really gonna make a move with the ball and dribble and pull up, which he can do, but that's not his bread and butter. So Nick Dorn has looked good, still coming back from injury, still coming off the bench, but he's continued to hit some big shots, especially in the Kentucky game. So having him as a third option to score the ball and create his own shot will be something that I think will help the team going forward.
Yeah, no, Indiana again, it's just so interesting to watch the stylistic changes from the last two regimes. It's very fun basketball to watch when it's working. And to your point, I mean, when we called out Lamar Wilkerson earlier, like I think maybe even in the first episode, he was someone that Auburn wanted. I mean, that he's a flamethrower. And you saw it once he got going, it was game over. That was an interesting point that you made about the neutral site and away games. The good thing about that, though, is you do know in conference play when you're at home, you've got, again, one of the best home court advantages in college basketball. Assembly Hall will be rocking. But I mean, I agreed with everything that you said. Again, I thought it was kind of unfortunate the timing that you had to play Kentucky too. I feel like Kentucky was in the media just getting bashed
Hmm.
constantly. Pope was forced to make lineup changes and adjustments, and sure enough, like they didn't necessarily hit you in the mouth, but they responded very well to whatever he said in the locker room at halftime. I thought that was kind of a testament to them, but also kind of a bad break scheduling wise with Indiana.
Are
Yeah,
you
no, that's
guys
good.
are we'll talk more about Kentucky, I'm sure, with the we get to the SEC, but are you guys buying stock into this little resurgence they've had with the the Indiana win and then the St. John's win back to back?
Um, I think a little bit. I think they might have been oversold. Their downfall might have been overplayed a bit, but do I think they're competing for maybe the SEC? Probably not. Do I think they're competing for a national championship? Definitely not. But I think they're probably could be in the maybe 4 seed range, 5 seed range.
Yeah, never
Yeah.
wavered.
Yeah, it feels like the pendulum just swung. Like I think everyone was super high on them going into the season.
Hmm.
They underwhelmed, and then it like went the complete opposite way, where everyone's like, "Do they, do these guys suck?" And when in reality, they're probably probably somewhere in the middle. But yeah, I was just curious while we were on that topic of Kentucky because they did look impressive against St. John's again yesterday.
Yeah, another game they were down at halftime and came
Yeah,
back from like the IU game. So that's at the very least they're showing some fight.
It is interesting. Like last year's Kentucky team was so fast. They didn't care about defense. They scored a ton of points, and it felt like at the beginning of this season when they were struggling. I mean, granted, it's only been 2 wins, but when they were struggling, they weren't playing any sort of defense. All of a sudden, Kentucky's defense looks like they're
yeah,
starting to run more sets on offense, take more time off the clock, play a little more physical defensively. It's like maybe Pope saw what he thought he had, realized that he didn't have the same team as last year, and kind of shifted gears as how he wants to run things. But that'll be something to monitor, I guess, as we go through it. But before we get into some conference breakdowns, Josh, what are the IU games coming up here?
Over the next 2 weeks with Christmas coming up, we only have 2 games. We have our last bye game at home against Siena. I'm hoping for another solid performance at home. Should hopefully be a blowout and don't have to sweat it at all. And then after that, we have our third Big Ten game, or it's at home against Washington. Washington's 56 on Torvik in the country, and we're currently 11-point favorites on Torvik. So that should be a win. It would be nice to win by double digits and go to 2-1 in the Big Ten. I do like Washington's coach, Danny Sprinkle, in his second year there coming out of Utah State. Um, but that's a game that you expect to win, and hopefully, no conference game you should overlook and think should be an easy win, but that should hopefully be a pretty comfortable win for the Hoosiers. And just as far as the Big Ten expectations for the rest of the season, I think we're pretty dead on from how I was thinking going into it. I think we're going to be able to knock off some teams at home that are better than us. That we shoot 40-45% of Lamar. Lamar goes for 40 points. We can beat anyone in the country. Granted, that probably won't happen again, but if we get Tucker and Lamar going at home, I think we could knock off a Purdue, knock off a Michigan. But I also think, like we saw with the Minnesota game, we're going to struggle against some teams that we should beat at times. And that's just part of having a new team and having a new system you're trying to implement, and really a system that's so reliant on 3-point shooting. When that shot's not there and you're
yeah.
on the road in a hostile environment, are you able to come up with another way to score the ball? And so far, the Hoosiers have not showed that they've been able to do that. So I think we'll have some big wins. I think we'll have some bad losses, and hopefully we end up on the right side of the bubble come March.
All righty. After those recaps, we can kind of take this into, conference summaries, kind of who we think contenders are, maybe some disappointers, and maybe, give some new championship picks if they change from the beginning, or maybe new player of the year picks in those conferences as well. But, Hunter, why don't you get us started? I guess we'll go alphabetical order here. We'll start with the ACC.
Yeah, the ACC has pretty much looked to this point how I expected it to. I think North Carolina's maybe been a little bit more impressive than we gave them credit for to start the season. Virginia's been pretty solid. They're 10-1 and ranked in the top 25 right now, but this just it feels like Duke's conference to lose. I would be, and likewise for Cam Boozer as Player of the Year. He's been absolutely phenomenal. I know I was just looking at like the Evan Mia player rating breakdowns. He is significantly higher in his BPR rating than anybody else in the ACC. I mean, Caleb Wilson's been good, Malik Renew's been good, but it really feels like Duke's Duke's fully capable of running the table in this conference. But it is nice to see, you're kind of back to what are some of your more traditional powers, in contention for the ACC this year. Carolina looks to be pretty good. Virginia's been solid. We know Louisville's a good team. Um, so I think that part of it is exciting that you're going to see some more of your kind of traditional basketball powers that are in contention for the ACC. Um, Cal is 12-1. I admittedly
Mhm.
don't know much at all about Cal.
They knocked off
Um,
UCLA, I believe.
they did, yeah. That was a that was like right around Thanksgiving, I think, wasn't it? Or
Yeah, I think so.
um, but again, maybe I need to brush up on Cal and what they got going out there. Um, but just don't foresee them being able to get to the top of the standings at the end of the year over the likes of Duke, UNC, Louisville. I think we all three picked Louisville to win the ACC at the beginning of the year. Anyone want to stick by that pick?
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I think you have to be on Duke at this point.
Yeah,
I have enjoyed watching Louisville play. I mean, Ryan Conwell has been one maybe my favorite player to watch that's not on Indiana, so he's been a bright spot for them, but they have struggled at times when their shooting's gone cold as well. But yeah, I think you pretty much covered the ACC pretty well. Virginia's been fun surprise. I like when Virginia's good at basketball, so I feel like it's good for the sport. Um, and yeah, UNC's been better than all three of us had talked about in that first episode that we did. So maybe we can get it close towards the end of March or towards the end of February at the beginning of March with Duke, UNC, and Louisville, and there'll be some meaningful games down the stretch. That'll be fun.
Yep. I think you guys hit the nail on the head. The only other team that I added in there is maybe potential frisky opponent is Clemson.
yeah,
They've looked all right. If they could just figure out how to close basketball games, I think that's a Brad Brownell problem. They manage to blow big leads constantly. If they win that game against BYU, they're ranked and they're on everyone's attention. And they were up 20 some points in that game. And I would honestly stamp that up into this point as my favorite game of the year so far. But I think it's Duke's to lose, and yeah, probably two-horse race between Wilson and Boozer, but Boozer's a good favorite to win that Conference Player of the Year. Um, Next, we'll hop over to the Big East. This one to me seems
Bad.
pretty straightforward. Yeah,
yeah.
this conference has
Maybe more
not.
so in the ACC.
Yeah, I know today UConn, struggled a little with DePaul, but I don't foresee them not winning this conference. I don't even know who I had for Player of the Year, but I would probably shift it to I think Zuby Ejiofor in that conference or Terrace Reed.
You
Are
had
Yeah,
Zuby
you
probably
and
Payton.
Zuby. Yeah,
okay. I would say those two are probably the guys I would go with. And contenders, I've marked Seton Hall. I love Shaheen Holloway. What he did with St. Peter's, right? Yeah,
yeah,
was pretty impressive. And he seems in year two to have gotten Seton Hall at least winning some of their non-con games. And then, St. John's you're going to put in that contender box, but they've been remarkably disappointing to start the year. I don't
yeah.
and I don't really know what it is. I know Patino's made his bread and butter off getting overlooked guys and just getting guys who play really hard, physical defenders. And then this year in transfer portal, they made a lot of big splashes, and you just wonder if those are the same guys that Patino had last year. I don't see the grit, the defense, or the rebounding that we saw from last year's St. John's team, and I think that's why they struggled up until this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One horse race, I think, in the Big East.
100%.
UConn's been rolling. Their one loss came to Arizona, who obviously is arguably the best team in the country, absolutely top two, and that came without Terrace Reed. So you lose your star big man in a matchup that Arizona's got a lot of size and can overwhelm you, and play. They were competitive in that game, but I think UConn absolutely looks the part of a national title contender. Solo ball's been awesome. Caravan, is always going to be solid and is a veteran presence. Terrace Reed's been really good up to this point. Demery actually, at least statistically, has been maybe slightly below what I would have expected from him.
Very, very underwhelming in my opinion.
I mean, he's playing 25, 26 minutes a game. Um, he's averaging just under 9 points a game, 20% from three on the year. So that could be, if he's able to improve on that production with as good as UConn's been already, then I think that just adds to what their ceiling is. But yeah, don't really see, especially with St. John's being as underwhelming as they've been to this point. I think they can still right the ship a little bit, but I just don't see anybody pushing UConn for the regular season Big East title.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. I would stick with UConn. That's what all three of us had on our preseason. Not necessarily like a tough pick to make, but I guess there was a lot of hype with St. John's going into the year. Looking at the Big East on Torvik, you got UConn second ranked overall team, St. John's 19th. Then after that, the next highest is Villanova at 37, and then a couple in the 40s. And they're anchored by Marquette at 140, which Marquette has been a disaster this year. They're 5-8. They haven't been able to
Yeah.
get anything going. Shaka's got to reevaluate his portal approach.
Yeah,
Um,
great pick for coach of the year, Peyton.
oh yeah, you could probably consider that one dead. A question I'll throw at Joel: how many bids is the Big East getting this year?
uh, four maybe.
That's a lot. I don't. I think it's two. I think Connecticut and St. John's get
Yeah,
in, and then after that, you can maybe find Creighton, Villanova, Seton Hall, Butler, maybe one or two of those teams.
Yeah,
yeah.
Villanova's been all right. Their only losses are to Michigan and BYU. They had a nice win against Wisconsin. I think was that last weekend, or was that
I think it was
that,
Friday
that
night,
was more
this
recent.
past
That was
Friday night.
Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. 10-point overtime win. So I don't know. Could Villanova, if they can run through, for the most part, what looks to be a weaker Big East, could they have a strong enough resume coming out of non-con with only two losses?
They're bad. Did you guys see in Big East news Ed Cooley getting suspended? He
yeah.
threw a full water bottle that hit a kid and injured him. I'm sure it wasn't as serious as they made it out to do, but good Lord. Georgetown has not been the same for the last
Yeah.
10 years. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if I see him getting definitely not more than four, and I think maybe probably three is what I would say is most likely.
Yeah, I think that 3 to 4 range is probably where it's at. For the record, right now on Torvik on T Rankitology, it has five. With
really.
it had Connecticut 1 seed, St.
Interesting.
John's 6 seed, which that might be more based off like the preseason ratings as opposed to their resume. Seton Hall 9 seed, Nova 10, and then Butler is the last team in the field currently. I would imagine that one of those teams will probably drop out though, as there's less preseason stuff weighted and more of actual resume based and performance based into that. But that does have an S5 right now, so we'll see if they're able to maintain that.
Sure. Now to a much more competitive conference that I have no idea who is going to come out on top, the Big Ten. Josh, I'll let you kick us off here as this is, Indiana's conference. But good Lord, what a start to the year for the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it looks to be both pretty good at the top and also relatively deep for as deep as you can be for an 18 team league. But yeah, it's Michigan one, Purdue two, I think so far. I don't think there's really any argument with that. And I think those two have kind of separated themselves. So I'd say Michigan and Purdue in the top tier, then a small gap, Michigan State, Illinois. I'd probably put that in the second tier. And then after that, you're probably looking at like UCLA, Nebraska. Shout out Nebraska ball. I think they're still the only Power 5 team to never have won a NCAA tournament game in conference or in program history. Don't quote me
Wow.
on that, but I think that's true. But yeah, Iowa's looked solid with a first year coach. You could maybe put Indiana in this tier, depends how big of the tier you make it. USC, they were off to a great start, but I don't know if y'all saw that Rodney Rice is done for the year, and he was
Yeah.
averaging 20 points a game for them. So it's gonna be a tough injury to overcome when I imagine he was their leading scorer, either one or two. So we'll see if Moss is able to make adjustments, but that probably is gonna hurt their ceiling a bit. But yeah, to me, it's really Michigan, Purdue, and I'd put Michigan State there and Illinois there as well. But I think the Big Ten this year, one thing that I've noticed is I think there's some really good coaches in the Big Ten. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, you have Painter, you know what he's done, and Dusty May is an up and comer. He's really starting to prove it at a high major level. Tom Izzo is very proven. Brad Underwood's proven, and then you got Ben McCollum coming up from DePaul or from Drake, excuse me. So yeah, it's a well coached league. It's a deep league, and I think it's going to be a great race at the top down the stretch.
Yeah, Josh, not feeling too hot on our Dana Altman Coach of the Year pick.
Nope, that one is probably dead like Shaka Smart.
Yeah, I mean the Big Ten, great. I mean my contenders are Purdue, Michigan, Michigan State, Illinois, and I put Nebraska in there, but I think those four kind of in a league of their own.
Mhm.
I don't remember what I picked at the beginning. I'm gonna stick with Purdue. I just trust Braden Smith and Kaufman Wren a little bit more than I trust this Michigan team, even though they played about as good as you can up until this point. That being said, he saw a couple scares against TCU and Wake Forest, two not very good teams that
Yeah.
they barely beat. So if they can keep playing how they have been, there's no reason why they can't run the table, or not run the table, but win the Big Ten. But I'm going to keep with Purdue.
Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. We all took Purdue. Um, that's a good call out on some of those earlier. I feel like those games are kind of forgotten now that Michigan, those close calls Michigan had because of how good they've been since then. Um, I mean, it doesn't even really feel like they've been tested since that TCU game, which was like their third or fourth game of the year. Um, yeah, I would switch my pick to Michigan. I think they've been the most impressive from like a dominance standpoint, but absolutely, I think I would say legitimate contenders to win the league, the regular season title. I would stop it after Michigan State. I would say it's going to be one of those three teams. I think Illinois is good. I think they absolutely can be a top four seed in the conference, but I don't see it getting past Michigan, Purdue, and Michigan State. Honestly,
That Michigan State game is going to be awesome.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I was curious. I just looked up Purdue's schedule, and they seem to look out this year. They have Michigan and Michigan State only once, and both games are at home, February
Wow,
17th and
Yeah.
February 26th. So those will be two huge
that's
games to decide
that's
the.
noteworthy.
Yeah, those will be Mac. Mac will be rocking for those. I hate Purdue, dislike Michigan. Probably will still stick with Purdue as a pick.
Gotcha. Josh, you want to talk about, and then we can switch over to the Big 12 after this, but Illinois transfer mid-season, another international player. I
Yeah,
know you're big on that soapbox. I mean, I agree with you.
yeah. Brad's done it again. He's gone overseas and pulled out another guy. And who apparently is going to be eligible to come back and play for Illinois in the second semester or the second half of the year. I think I did see a beat report from Illinois report that he is going to redshirt. He's just going to be practicing and working out with the team. But still, I don't think he should be able to join a team halfway through the season. Um, that's just my opinion. I don't think it's an unpopular opinion, but I think it's pretty ridiculous what college basketball has become, where you can go abroad in the middle of the season, and theoretically, if you did want him to start playing for your team, it sounds like he could starting in 2 weeks from now. So, is what it is. But yeah, good for Illinois, I guess, for taking advantage of that. If it's a rule and it's legal, you might as well do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
That's what Auburn did with Austin Wiley, but he was a graduate. He graduated high school early and joined them after the
Mhm.
winter semester and played played conference play.
That's
I
wild.
guess that was like 2016, 2017.
Geez, I don't think I
Um,
knew that.
yeah, yeah, it was a year before we got to school there. And I'm pretty sure it counted as like his freshman year because he he played. Um, but yeah, I was thinking about that when I saw the Illinois adding. But yeah, like even that even feels different going, a graduating high school kid that graduates early and rolls as a freshman in the winter versus just going overseas and plucking a
A
pro
pro. He's been
from
playing professional basketball for like
from a
4 or 5 years.
European team.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's I yeah. There's conversation to be had about that in general, much less mid-season. If you don't
Mhm.
like where your roster's at, and you can just go plug. Hell, if that's if that's something people are able to do, maybe Steven should hop on a flight to somewhere over there and try and find him another big man.
Yeah, no, I mean it's no knock on Illinois. If they have those connections to those
Yeah,
those agents that are in Europe and it's completely legal, like sure, do it. But I think it's like you said, Hunter, a better representation of an overall issue with where college
yeah.
basketball and college sports are in 2025.
Yeah. All right, our next conference on the list, the Big 12. This is another deep conference with
Yeah.
some heavy hitters. Contenders I marked Iowa State, Arizona, BYU, Texas Tech, Houston, and if you're still high on them, Kansas you could put in that area as well. I wouldn't consider them as big of a threat as the other five teams. Arizona has been awesome. I mean, it's tough to even find a flaw in their team. But I'm going with Iowa State. That's going to be my champion pick. They've looked so good defensively, which has been very surprising to me. They're a very well coached team. Not saying that Arizona isn't, but Iowa State's looked just as good as they have. And I trust Iowa State's home court advantage a little bit more than I trust Arizona's.
So listen to this. So this is Iowa State's last one, two, three, four, five, six. Their last 7 games of the year. Kansas at home, Houston at home, at BYU, at Utah, Texas Tech at home, at Arizona, and then they finish at Arizona State at home. So they're the front half of their Big 12 schedule is really light. They could legitimately still be undefeated into like halfway through February. Um, they go to Kansas early in Big 12 play, but I think they could sweep Kansas quite honestly. Um, but man, talk about something they could be looking prime to run the table in the Big 12, and then that last, they have 5 games against Kansas, Houston, BYU, Texas Tech, Arizona, right there at the end. So that's interesting for sure. Um, I would probably rock with Arizona. I think just based on what we've seen, I do think this is the deepest league at the top in terms of like number of teams that could legitimately contend for it. I mean, they got 4 teams in the top 12 at Evan Mia. I think Kansas is talented. They've been banged up throughout the year. Texas Tech, big win last night. They're going to be just a little bit volatile. I think they're really good offensively and pretty rough defensively. So could be one of those teams where they could pick off, a couple teams they're not as good as, and probably lose to somebody that they shouldn't. But the Big 12 is going to be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is probably the conference I'm most excited to see play out down the stretch, and that end of the season for Iowa State that you mentioned is pretty crazy, Hunter. I did want to call out someone. I don't think we've even mentioned him on the podcast yet so far. Joshua Jefferson on Iowa State. I think
Oh
he's
yeah,
put himself into Player of the Year conversation, probably in that maybe 3 or 4 spot behind some of the bigger guys, Boozer, Braden Smith. But yeah, he's been awesome. 17 and a half, 6.5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. And I think Iowa State probably holds the most impressive win of the season so far when they went into Purdue and dismantled
yeah.
them, pants Matt Painter. And then they followed it up with a solid win against a rival at home in Iowa. So they've been very impressive. Um, and I guess I'll stick with Houston as my pick, just so each of us are on a different one here. But yeah, it's like you said, Hunter, this is probably the most top heavy, wide open that we have, where there's really, I think you have 3 legit national title contenders in Houston,
Absolutely.
Arizona and Iowa State, and then you got Kansas, BYU, Texas Tech that are right there behind them that can probably knock off any of those teams at any given time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you, or I guess Peyton and Josh, would you stand by your Peyton and I had JT Toppin player of the year, Josh had Debanza. Would you guys stand by those or would you jump somewhere else?
I'd go Jefferson at this point.
I'm gonna stick with Toppin.
I
He's
think
been
I
good.
would too. Statistically, he's blowing it out of the water. And sometimes that's what these awards come down to. Um, I think there's definitely an argument that Jefferson is doing more to contribute to winning basketball, as is evident by their team's records. But I would probably stick with Toppin at least at this point.
Yeah, and I think it obviously a lot to play out, but at this point I put Otts as the coach of the year so far for Iowa State.
Yeah.
They've been very
Yeah,
impressive. They're top 10 in adjusted offensive efficiency and adjusted defensive efficiency on Torvik. So, he's got
yeah,
him
I
playing great
wouldn't
on both
argue with
sides of the
that.
ball.
And that brings us to the last conference we're gonna hit on, the SEC. This conference for me, I don't think is as good as the Big 12 or the Big 10. That being
No.
said, it is a complete toss up to me as to who could win this thing. I mean, the contenders that I've got Florida, Bama, Tennessee. I'd even put Vandy there up until this point. People will say Georgia, but they'll see quickly that they're not that good. And Arkansas. Um, right now, my championship pick is Arkansas. I wouldn't be surprised if Florida's guards got a little bit better or Bama made a run for it, though.
Yeah. It's going to be fun just because, to your point, it's not as deep, especially at the top, as the Big Ten or the Big 12 are. Um, but it is very wide open where I think another league where you have, maybe five or six teams that could legitimately win the league. I don't think I disagreed with any of those that you said, Peyton, Vandy, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas.
Kentucky?
That's where I was, that's where I was hesitating. Um, could they? Yes, I think they could. Um, I would probably still have them a tier below some of those other guys. Vandy's an interesting one too, just because I think the schedule hasn't been nearly to the level of what like Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, like some of those teams have played in terms of a schedule to this point. But again, something to be said for taking care of business, beating who you're supposed to beat, and they are absolutely electric offensively. I actually, and I'm gonna pull this back up because Josh, I looked this up when you were talking about Georgia being the uh, leading scoring team in the country. Um, one, two, three, four of the top six in the country are SEC teams. Georgia's
Wow.
one, Alabama's four, Vandy's five, Texas A&M is six. Um,
Might have lost you, Hunter.
did you?
Fandy, you still there, Jaybird?
Yeah, I got you. But that's crazy. I didn't know that they had three of the top six as highest scoring points.
Three, like, oh, we're back. I think before it stopped, Josh was rattling off some of his SEC contenders. I mean, you want to keep going, Josh? Seems like you're pretty high on Arkansas, Florida, and Bama.
Yeah, those are the three to me so far, and really Florida and Bama, and then or Bama and Arkansas, and then Florida, and then if behind them, I think you got Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and Kentucky, each with the opportunity to make a run at the SEC. I don't know if those three teams have a legit chance at a national championship, but you know Tennessee has a great home court advantage. Kentucky has a great home court advantage. We'll see if Vanderbilt can get a good home court environment going now that they got the program rolling. But yeah, like y'all were saying, the SEC to me is is really fun this year. It's pretty wide open. Payne, I know you're high in Arkansas. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, kind of my rationale as to why I really like this Arkansas team, and why now I'm picking them as the favorite to win is, you know, there's a like Cal struggles with I think polarity with some of his teams. They're all always freshmen. Um, this year he's getting some good minutes in production from Knox, from Wagner, from Brazil. Those guys are all experienced guys who have played in this league for a while, and then he's pairing it with Malik Thomas has been good. He hasn't been as good as Darius Acuff though. That guy's built like a freight train too. I don't know if you've watched him. He's a huge guard. He's pretty thick and physical. I think Cal's finally got a team that's got the young talent, the young five stars paired with some guys who have been there and done that before.
Yeah, no doubt. Hunter, any last thoughts on the SEC that you before your Wi-Fi cut out?
No, I think I was talking about the four teams that are in the top six in scoring.
Mhm.
That said, when you look at some of the defensive ratings in the league, they're pretty rough. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not going to stick with my Kentucky pick. Um, I lean towards Alabama or Arkansas right now. I think, you know, Arkansas, to your point, Peyton, like they've got some guys that have been playing college basketball for a while and have some experience, and then you pair it with Malik Thomas and Acuff, and they shoot really well. I was just looking at their 3-point percentages. I mean, Brazil, and I don't know what kind of volume Brazil shoots on exactly, but he's shooting almost 46% from three. Acuff shooting 44%. Carter Knox is shooting 47%. So they've got some guys that can light it up from outside. Yeah, I would probably lean towards Bama or Arkansas at this point. I think. Do you guys think there's a team in the SEC that can win the national title?
I think so. I think Bama and Arkansas can both play their way into form, and if they get hot down the stretch, they could. I mean, Bama, if they get hot down the stretch, they can beat anyone in the country at any given night. Florida obviously has been there; they have the experience. Although a lot of the guys that last year graduated, but I still trust Golden to get the guys ready. So I think those three have a chance. I wouldn't put them on the same tier as
Sure.
Michigan, Arizona, Purdue, Iowa State. But I definitely think that the SEC has a good chance of at least being represented in the Final Four.
I agree with you, Josh, completely.
You guys want to quickly pivot off your Otega Owe Player of the Year pick, or I'm sticking with Phylon. Obviously, I think that's
Yeah, jeez, I don't even know who I go to. I mean, I'm obsessed with Thomas Howard, so I'm gonna take him and just hope Florida figures it out.
that's fair.
Yeah. Phylon's a good one. Um, who do we got on Vanderbilt? He's kind of carrying the load for them. Is
Darius
it?
Miles.
Tyler
Yeah, and
Tanner,
Tyler
Tyler
Nickel.
Nickel,
Yeah. I don't know if any of those guys are gonna really stand out at the end.
man, Acuff
Um,
might be a good pick.
A Cup's a good one. Um, yeah, I think I saw something with Phylon that I think he's top three in the country for guard points in the paint. So, he's
I believe it.
been able to score inside and outside. So that's a good one. I might lean with him with you, Tucker, or with you, Hunter.
All righty. We can run through our pick standings and then sign off here. A nice little quick run through of the conferences. Still coming in at first place, Hunter Thompson with an impressive 23-15 pick record. Josh still in second place with a pretty impressive as well, 21-17 record. And then bringing up the rear end is still your boy at 18-20. I am still in last, but I've caught fire after a 6-14 start.
Absolutely, man. 500 is well within grasp.
We're still profitable as a podcast, which if you go out there and look at other betting shows, whether it be football, baseball, any other sport, I find it tough to believe that there are a lot of people out there putting together collectively winning record. So there's money to be made if you guys just would listen. Um,
Yeah, what are we like? 8 games over 500? 9?
we are, let's see, six. We're 10.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
That's good work, boys. And only getting
Good
better.
stuff.
I think we all start 0-3 or 0-2? I think we all start
Yeah.
0-2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Said to knock the rust off a little bit.
Exactly.
There's a learning curve without a doubt. Um, all right, unless anyone has anything else, one thing I'm gonna wrap up with for our Auburn fans. I am putting out a $10 bounty for anyone who goes to Athens and breaks one of those stupid blue canes that they wave around during those games. Auburn fans, if you can make it, go to that game. That's a big one for us. We need this win.
I might make the trip, man.
Yeah,
We'll
I-
see.
I'm in.
We will see. But yeah, no, it's gonna be fun. Been a lot of great games up to this point. Definitely some chaos. I think, you know, tiers on the national level are starting to form a little bit. But that said, you never know. Once conference play starts, it's really hard to win on the road, especially in conference play. There'll be plenty of upsets, plenty of blowouts, plenty of close games. Um, Real quick, just rapid fire. Who are your one seeds right now today? If the season ended today, obviously Arizona, Michigan.
Based off resume or based off how we think it's going to go the rest of the year? Based off up to
To
this
this
point,
point, up to this point, if the season ended today, I think obviously Arizona, Michigan, and then
Iowa
the
State, UConn,
that's where I go.
I go Iowa State Duke.
Duke. Yeah, we barely even talked about Duke. Yeah, I'd probably put Duke over UConn. I think they have more impressive wins.
I think I would give the edge to UConn. Yeah, Duke does have a really good resume though, and a 1 point loss. Um, no, I'll go Iowa State and UConn.
Yeah, Torvik T. Katology has Michigan, Arizona, Connecticut, Iowa State, with Duke being the
Is
next
that the
two.
is that
So
the projection? Is that the one that they project out?
those are projections. That's not based off of here. He has a link too. If the season ended today, he's got same thing, I think. Arizona, Michigan, Iowa State, UConn, just a different order. And then there's Gonzaga right there, fifth
God,
Yeah,
overall, which we didn't talk about.
analytics. They love
the
the Zags.
I was about to say the two seed conversation might even be more interesting just with how many, Purdue, Houston, Gonzaga, whoever you didn't pick between Duke and UConn,
Vandy.
Michigan State. Yeah, man, metrics are all over. I think I saw they're up to five on, I can't remember if it was Torvik or Ken Palm. One of them, I think they're up to number five.
Yeah,
It's
five on
Torvik.
Torvik.
We'll
Crazy.
see.
Well, all righty. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. We appreciate it again. Like, comment, subscribe, follow the Instagram and the YouTube, ball up top, as well as the Spotify. But that's all we got for you today. Hope everyone has a happy holidays and may the odds be in your team's favor.
Good stuff. Thanks, everyone.